What's going on, everybody? Today we have a very special video here on the channel. Today is the first collaboration that I've done with any FM content creator. It is my good friend FletchTheSauce. He is one of the best draft competitors within the world of Football Manager. We're basically going to be discussing our viewpoints on certain aspects of the Football Manager world. And one of those aspects is the world of Moneyball, which I know that Fletch feels pretty strongly about, so you guys are going to be very entertained by what we are about to discuss today. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's video. Alright, so here we are, everybody. Welcome in, Fletch. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about you?
I am doing alright. So today, essentially, this is going to be kind of like a Q&A interview type format where we're discussing the ins and outs of FM and kind of our opinions or differing of opinions on certain subjects, which I gave you all an inkling as to one of the things that we'll be talking about, which is Moneyball eventually. So where are you in the FM world of things? You are one of the top FM competitive streamers, correct?
I'm one of the top ranked. I wouldn't know if I'm the top, but one of the top ranked PvP players, and I play in a network save that we've been playing this season against some other top ranked FM players.
Yeah. Now, I have commentated over Fletch in the past when I was doing stuff with the Spring Cup and all of them, and Fletch was in those tournaments. Very, very good competitor, very good with tactics and being able to break people down as well, which that is actually going to be one of the first things that we talk about today. When it comes to tactics, we both approach them very differently. What is one of your favorite tactics or ways to go about tactics when you are either setting up a save or going in from a match-to-match experience?
Well, first thing I'll say is when you did commentate on the FM series, I genuinely think you're one of the best commentators I've heard in PvP. For people that don't know, you do PvP and they'll have a panel of people that present and commentate on the show, and I really feel like you were the first commentator that I heard that really gave me props. Prior to that, kind of maybe people weren't as good at you as the game who commentate, but I feel like you really kind of spotted me and put me a bit more on the map and give me my props. So I want to say thank you for that. That was cool.
You're very welcome, my man, and thank you for the kind words as well.
So in regards to tactics, I more think about what my opponent is doing. I think there's a general consensus around Football Manager that just most people will pick a tactic that's best for their team, and there's obviously absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, I do it at the beginning of saves too. If I have a team that's hard to work with and it clearly is set up to play in a certain way, there's not much variation. I think there's always a little bit of variation, but if a team is set up in a clear way, but I'll always try to acquire players, or if I'm drafting in particular, look for players where I can play multiple systems and look at opponents' tactics and try and make formations for them, which involves me. I think at the time you commentated, the first time, there was like a hashtag waiting for Fletch. And that was because I would take so long between games. Most people didn't realize I was making a tactic for that person prior to the game once I see their tactic. So I feel really bad for making them people wait, but that is how I play the game, making a tactic for each opponent that I'm playing against.
Yeah, which at the end of the day, it allows you to win, because lately I've been going about that as well, and it really does help you just be able to dominate your opponents. Because if you're, and we've talked about this before, if you're taking a tactic, plugging it in, and playing it every single game, it's going to work to a certain degree, but when you are able to kind of adapt your team and your tactic to what you are coming up against, you're going to be able to dominate them in a whole new way, especially if you are trying to, I guess, take certain players out of a game, such as a Vinny Jr. or an Mbappe or a Haaland. It gives you way better of a chance to win. But for favorite tactics, for me, it's mainly been one that I used on Twitch when I was streaming during my Lazio save. And basically anything that is asymmetric, I end up loving. And we can see it on my screen right now for you guys. I'll pop it up in the video. it's my 4-2-3-1 target practice where I have a segundo volante essentially run into an open space that I have created for it through making the 4-2-3-1 asymmetric. And to plug where that segundo volante is, I have an inverted wingback come up. So essentially, I'm having a segundo volante act as a super deep advanced playmaker or a super deep shadow striker, have that inverted wingback come in, kind of plug that gap, and then I have an inverted fullback back there with my 2 ballpoint defenders, so I still have a 3 in the back, still have 2 defensive midfielders, and then I have 5 in attack. So going about tactics in that way, asymmetric-wise, I absolutely love doing that. Next thing that I would like to discuss that I know you were very passionate about, Moneyball.
Yes.
So, Moneyball, one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite ways to see clubs kind of approach things. And how certain clubs do is obviously up to how well they're recruiting, how well they're able to have the right managers, such as Brighton. They, a majority of the time recently, have had the right managers to be pulling it off. But what are your feelings on Moneyball, sir?
Well, maybe I'm just salty because when I was a kid, I was like 10 years old playing Premier Manager 97. I actually thought that I invented Moneyball, and I thought that was my idea. And when the movie came out, which I love too, one of my favorite movies, it actually broke my heart because I was like, I came up with this idea. I thought I invented it. Also, basically, what my idea of it was is that you disregard every piece of information other than how people perform. You're not caring how pretty people are, etc. Things like selling shirts are irrelevant and stuff like that. But the first thing I want to say is, if you think the most fun way to play Football Manager is to go to a stats-based kind of approach and just look at player stats, I understand that, and if you found that fun, I get it. But as a practical approach for recruiting, the attributes is what I mostly care about of the players, as well as hidden attributes. Obviously, you find out them after scouting. But I prefer to find players that have underperformed statistically that make them cheaper. Generally, players that perform statistically well, prices will be inflated when it could be due to factors like form or just perfect time, perfect situation, perfect situations that continue to develop, as opposed to that might not translate to your system. You can think of endless examples of it, as well as, people always highlight the examples of it working in real life. But when they sign players and it hasn't worked, they've done well in various leagues, XYZ leagues. And then when it comes to translate to other leagues, this kind of doesn't work. But the main issue I have with Moneyball is, particularly if you don't take the attributes off of the game, the attributes are king to me. The numbers mean something. So I'd much rather, if a guy has 15 finishing, 15 composure, all the good stuff, decision, speed, like, it makes sense that they're going to score goals. And then I look in the game and the guy's not scoring goals, I won't think that's a bad player. Whereas if I see a player who's got like 8 finishing and he keeps scoring a bundle of goals, I will not think that's a good player. I cannot be convinced that that the attributes don't mean anything. So I am a firm believer in the attributes, and I've had too many examples of players that have done horrible for their previous clubs and underperformed, and then played great in my systems because I picked them based on their attributes, not their stats in their former clubs, basically.
Yeah, I've approached FM in both ways. I like the Moneyball aspect to a certain degree, and I like going the attribute way to a certain degree as well. And it for me, it kind of comes down to exactly how do I want to approach a certain save or whatnot. Because say you go to manage Brentford or Brighton, you kind of want to stay and adhere to what they are doing, which both clubs have gotten to where they are due to Moneyball. But you're right in saying that with attributes can sometimes mean way more than the stats. Because say we'll use a player as an example, Anthony Martial at Manchester United. He is usually transfer listed like 90% of the time when he was at Manchester United. Now, they usually would not play him. But based on his attributes, no matter where he would end up going, he would usually tear it up. But because they wouldn't be playing him, you wouldn't be able to bring him in based on his numbers. However, based on his attributes, you would be able to bring him in. So that's kind of where that can clash in a way. So I 100% get the attribute side of it.
Yeah, I have a perfect example on my screen here. We have Mason Toy, who's renowned for being like a flop in the MLS. I have a friend, Bizarro Brigade. He supported Minnesota, and he was terrible for them. And if you look, he's got 1 goal in 11 appearances and an average rating of 6.42 in his last season, and never been prolific whatsoever. Now, all Moneyball would suggest that this is a terrible signing and he should never be acquired. In the last 4 games, he's averaged a 7.88 rating. He's just a perfect player for my system. I totally disregard the previous stats, and also I find like a lot of pleasure the same pleasure that people find from finding a player who's got good stats, who's been performing well, and then bringing him in. I like finding a guy that hasn't scored in 20 games, bringing him in, and then he scores every game. I much prefer doing that. It feels way more fun to me.
Yeah, and with that stuff, it's when there are those players that aren't producing, then you bring them in and they just start banging in goal after goal after goal. You feel like you're on top of the world at that point. Like, I knew I was right. Absolutely knew it. But with the Moneyball perspective, there is a player. Let me bring him up really quickly. I had him when I was at Tromsø in this save. His name's Oscar Sierra Sivertsen. And he was originally at Christensen. And how he was playing, his numbers were exactly what I was looking for. So I brought him into Tromsø. He ended up doing pretty well. Sold him to Copenhagen, but then I moved to Lazio. And I was like, you know what? I need someone on the wing. He's still putting up pretty decent numbers in Denmark. So I brought him into Lazio. And from the face of things, you're probably like, okay, he doesn't look absolutely insane, but he is good where it matters attribute-wise, but his numbers were what were really ringing home. So I combined the Moneyball aspect with the attribute aspect, and it ended up being the perfect signing. He helped me get to a Champions League final with Lazio. Unfortunately, lost it to Liverpool. But by combining both worlds, it can go a long way. If you just want to go the Moneyball route, you can. You just want to go the attribute route, you can. But if you combine both, you're going to find some absolute gems.
Well, what makes the player so good attribute-wise? Does he have now you've played the game, you're aware of the guy. Does he have crazy attributes himself? What makes him get those stats?
One thing that helped him a lot, I think, was his pace. And I mean, he's 26 years of age now within this save. He's got 16 acceleration, 15 pace, 15 agility. But even though he didn't have like the best holy trinity of dribbling, finishing, first touch, it was still solid enough to where I knew whether I was playing him up top or off either wing, because he could do that, or even as a 10 if I needed him to. He was going to contribute goal scoring wise, and he absolutely dominated when there's players like a Rafael Leao in the Serie A who weren't coming anywhere near what he was doing. All right, so next up, we have got everyone's favorite thing in the FM community, loans. Loans are very interesting because in certain scenarios they can help you, in certain scenarios they absolutely help you get nowhere. So Fletch, what is your opinion on loan signings?
Okay, I have to be careful here because this is a conversation I have on my Twitch, on my chat, and most of the heated debates I have are revolved around loans, mostly with people who love loans, who I'm basically shattering their world of loans are the best thing ever. I think Zealand put it out there saying like loans, and putting a big emphasis on how important loans are. Now, in my current save in Canada, you have really strict registration rules, so loans become perfectly viable because they're a perfect way to improve your team. Money is less of a factor because of wage cap, etc. So loans actually become good in certain scenarios. But if we look at Football Manager in terms of, let's say, a Premier League like a journey towards the Premier League. You're a Championship team or League One team, and you're moving up through the ranks, or any kind of high reputation jump, right? So any league where there's going to be huge jumps in reputation. Now, I gave an example to you not too long ago, which was, I'm going to use example A, which is I'm going to give you a almost free house for minimal money. You then pay the lease of that house for 5 years or up to 5 years. And at any point during that 5-year lease, you can then sell that house for pure profit and reinvest those funds. Or you can have a slightly better house in some cases. Sure, I'm not going to say that every free signing or cheap transfer that you can find and transfer listed players or undervalued players or just random cheap players that you can find are going to be as good as some of the loans you can get. However, the loan, you're paying a lease for the player, sometimes at a premium, like if you're paying monthly fees, etc. And then you then return that player back. Now, I'm not talking about a loan with the option to buy, because if you do intend on playing that player and that player's definitely kind of come to you, that's just a delayed payment. I'm talking about a loan where you have no intention of signing them. To me, say you have this investment that you pick up for free in the Championship. Say you're a lower Championship side. You got a guy on a 5-year deal. You build up that club to title contenders. You get promoted to the Premier League. Them players are going to be exponentially worth ridiculously, like the maximum more. You pick up a guy for a couple $100K or for free. And there's this misconception you pick up a player for free and their resale value isn't as much. It just isn't true. If they get game time and their performances are fairly decent, a guy that's brought you to the Premier League is going to be worth 5, 6, 7, 10, 20x the value. And that is something that can really snowball. And I have a couple of saves where I've done no loans. They've been like no loan challenges, and they've been way easier than loan challenges, because using scouting to make sure, obviously you have to be on top of your scouting, but to get expired contract players, free agents, cheap transfer listed players, it actually made my saves easier. It wasn't a challenge, and it's because of the snowball that you can get from selling a couple players. Alternatively, I had a save where I did overuse loans, and it absolutely killed my momentum, because I'm continually having to replace them loan signings with loan signings, and I'm not generating that money to kind of snowball. So if you really want to progress and snowball in your saves, loans have a hidden expense and can be some of the most detrimentally expensive players by not acquiring these other players that you can 10x, 20x even.
Oh, yeah. And when I heard you make that kind of breakdown on Twitch, when you were talking about it's like being able to have a free house or you have a house on loan, at the end of the 5 years, you have to give the house back. Whereas if you have it for free and you can sell it at any time, not only could you sell it 2 years in and make a profit because you got it for free, but also if you want to keep it past those 5 years, you can. So that kind of analogy makes a boatload of sense. With loans, I think it is a very interesting realm of FM, because when you see players, and I mean Chelsea recently with the updated databases and everything, they usually allow Cole Palmer to go on loan. However, you have to usually pay like 150, 300K, sometimes up to £1 million a month just to have him on loan at your club. Instead of paying that, you could invest that into a player, or you could not loan at all, bring in someone on a free, and then if you sell them, you make all that profit. I am one of the people that does utilize loans. However, when I use them, it is either in emergency situations, like say both of my keepers go down injured, like I'm kind of going to probably have to loan in someone at goalkeeper to make sure that I have someone of decent-ish quality back there. Or say, we've used the Championship as an example a lot so far. Say you're in the Championship. If you are a team trying to go up to the Prem, getting someone from the Prem to come down to help you out can definitely help you get to where you want to be. Are they going to help you in that following season? Only if you bring them in on a permanent basis. If you are a team fighting to stay out of relegation or one that could possibly be relegated, yes, loans are going to help you make sure that you survive. However, if you're in that mid-table type area, like a Cardiff City, Swansea City type team, what exactly will you gain from loans? Yeah, it could help you sneak into the playoffs and go up on a surprise run, but I would much rather be bringing in people on a permanent basis that I know are going to be there for multiple years to come to help me kind of build towards what I want to do. So with loans, I loan in certain instances. I do know the lower leagues you are, loans do help you more, especially getting to where you want to be. However, I would take a free signing over a loan signing any day of the week, and I kind of put them at the same level, I guess, because I mean, essentially, a majority of the time, you don't have to pay a monthly fee if you are doing your loans correctly, and it's essentially like another free signing. But like you said, even if you're getting the free signing, you're getting that loan signing at no monthly cost, that loan's going to have to go back. Or that loan can even be terminated early, and they can be recalled if that team gets like an injury bug, or if, say, the player's not happy that you're playing them at defensive midfield, you're playing them in central midfield instead, because that prima donna stuff happens all the time with loans. So I definitely see both sides of it, but I do prefer the free signing route.
So there's another example I'd like to give you, is that because we use the lower leagues, that there people give an emphasis that maybe in the lower leagues you can get quite a bigger differential in terms of quality of player. Now, in my Cambridge United one, where we start in League One, in my Cambridge United save, we basically wasn't allowed loans, but I didn't really want loans anyway. Those free players and very cheap players that I acquired, selling them in like droves of 8 or 9 players at 50k each, even though 50k doesn't seem a lot, you're talking about adding 500,000 to a transfer budget of a League One team. So
exactly, that at that level it makes a massive difference.
I had a little bit of struggle in progress where someone could definitely have made an argument, hey, if you loaned in this guy instead of signing these players, you could have got promoted quicker and snowballed that way. However, we did have a little bit of a stumbling block in getting promoted, However, when it came to, say, the second season, and I've got this like war chest of 1 million now for League One, putting that into the wages and attracting much better free signings, like I convert them transfer funds into wages, buy more free players. This second I was promoted to the Championship, I was instantly promoted to the Premier League, and it was because I'd started the Championship with like 9 million or something in transfer funds from flipping these players. I did get lucky with getting a good development, selling like a youth player and stuff, but a lot of it was maintained by getting these free signings and selling them, so that my trajectory, once I got past a certain point. So obviously for a short-term network save, loans are amazing because you're not thinking about the long term in the future. But for a snowballing type of save where you want to go to the top, there might be a little blip, but you're going to have a straight line upwards once you get that momentum from the transfer fees that come in. That's going to be the lifeline of the club. And it's easy to calculate how much a loan costs. It's just cost of wages and maybe a little bit of fees, but it's so hard to calculate the loss of potential earnings from a player that would have played that position. Someone used a good name for it that I forgot, but yeah, that is hard to calculate what it actually cost.
And also with like these lower type leagues, the best way to go about things is not paying transfer fees when you are at these lower league type levels.
Absolutely.
Especially what a lot of people do, especially when they're first trying to learn Football Manager, if they want to go the route of, okay, I want to start lower and build my way up, but I don't want like too difficult of a challenge, they'll go to Germany and they'll start in the third league and then they'll build their way up. That is the perfect way to do things by going the free signing route. Don't pay transfer fees until you hit the Bundesliga, and even then, when you do hit the Bundesliga, maybe wait a season, utilize loans then to ensure that you survive. That's the perfect scenario to utilize loans in, along with your free signings. and then you can eventually build just an absolute juggernaut.
See, I disagree. I disagree with you completely there, and that is a Zealand philosophy.
Really?
That is the Zealand mentality of you've been promoted, you now need a higher caliber of player, throw in them loans. I would say that this is your moment where this is your biggest opportunity to take in some players where their potential value is going to increase. And if you're solely just trying to survive in the league, loans are not required to do that. Now, you can calculate a few loans will improve my position by X, but if you're good enough with the scouting, and what I use my scouting for is literally every scout is only focused on finding expiring or expired contract players. If you get that reputation boost of the Bundesliga, you're going to be able to attract a quality of player that will be survivable in the Bundesliga for sure. If you're smart about it and if you make the right acquisitions, you're good on top of your scouting. For me, the loans are just not necessary. That is where they say it's the best moment to use loans. I feel it's the worst, and that is your biggest jump. You get a handful of good free signings, cheap signings into the Bundesliga. You survive in that league with those players. All them players are going to be worth multiple millions now, without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with that, because you should try and bring in as many free signings as possible. And Fletch is right. You get that reputation boost when you go up, say, to the Bundesliga instead of Bundesliga 2. You get that reputation boost. You can bring in better players on freeze. With the loan side of that, though, if you bring in, say, 7 players on freeze that are going to help you survive, and you're like, maybe I want just that one player that might help make a difference between, instead of just surviving, maybe we push for the Conference League or even a Europa League spot. Because, I mean, we just saw that with Heidenheim in reality last year. They came up and they got into Europe immediately. So if you can bring in that one player and it be through a loan, why not do it type thing?
Yeah. I have an example on my screen here of a player, Sottil, high reputation Italian player that's kind of like fell off a cliff in terms of his quality, but still a high reputation player. We brought him in for free, and we're in Canada, not a high reputation league. He has not played a single league match, and he's in the process of being sold for £1 million, which is, I mean, my club has 1.8 million in the balance. You know, that's a huge transfer for a guy that isn't even playing a game. His whole fees are based on his reputation and whatnot. Obviously,
that can go back to the houses type of philosophy. Like, you're flipping houses, essentially. You're getting one for dirt cheap, and then you flip it for $1 million
without him even having to play. Now, think about bringing in this player at championship level, and he plays his whole season. You're talking about a 4 or 5 million potential resale value on a player. That 5 million you convert into a 50k a week player for a Premier League that you wouldn't have been able to have otherwise. That is a game changer. And keep in mind that 50k a week player is now going to be worth 10 to 20 million in the future, etc.
Yeah, very true. And with trying to accrue as much value as possible, especially through free signings, and instead of going the loan route, that can definitely help you have a war chest in the future.
Yep.
So, next up, we have got Wonder Kids. Now, Wonder Kids is one of everyone's favorite things within Football Manager. We love scouting for them, we love bringing them in, and we love hoarding them as well. However, Fletch, I know that you have a certain opinion on Wonder Kids. Would you like to share?
I get that everyone loves Wonder Kids. I get the appeal. I've played saves in the past where I've tried to have a whole team of regens, and it makes it particularly easy if you can acquire players you know are going to improve, they know they're going to fulfill their potential. You scout players. For some reason, I just don't find that interesting. Maybe it's the PvP draft mode. You're not going to see a potential of the player. Maybe it's because I have an affinity towards real players in the game, and especially, as I mentioned previously, I love the thought of signing someone who most people wouldn't sign and looks like they're going to be terrible. I like to see someone who has every indication of being terrible and then turning out great, rather than the opposite, which is kind of like, someone's going to be phenomenal and there's no kind of risk element involved around it. It's just that guy is going to be insane. And I think it's to do also with my tactical system, where I kind of need them more developed, well-rounded players that you don't always get from wonder kids or regens. Some of the most unfun saves I've ever had, of where I'm kind of forced to play certain tactics and I can't be adaptable, I can't change for certain things because I'm accommodating certain wonder kids, trying to get them developed the most, so I don't want to retrain them in different positions, or they're just limited in a system where I'm building a system that suits these wonder kids and it's forced me to play a 4-2-3-1 every game, and I quickly get bored of that. The guy inevitably becomes great, but we already knew that was going to happen, and I don't feel there's any kind of jeopardy or risk in that. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat, that I like signing some of the best IRL players around, or giving some IRL players that may otherwise not get the opportunity, give them that opportunity. However, I do love signing wonder kids, and the reason being is because obviously you're not going to keep all of them all the time. A lot of us end up flipping them for major money, especially when we get what we are looking for at the time for a transfer offer for them. However, there's those ones that just become absolute Football Manager legends to certain people. Like I had one this year. I've never really had one that's just like, wow, I'm going to remember this guy for a while. I've had one player so far in all the years I played Football Manager, and it was when I was in Norway. However, this year, found a striker. He was at St. Truden. His name's Benoni de Bont, and I brought him in when I was at Lazio, and he had some decent ability, but he wasn't like a first-team starter immediately when I brought him in. Like you said, you want to make sure that when you are bringing in players that they have the ability to compete and help you at that current moment. You don't want to necessarily have to wait a year or two and develop them into what you eventually need them to be. You need that help like right then and there. I ended up giving him some games, and I was like, all right, this dude's going to be pretty good. And sure enough, he is now with me at Bayern Munich, and he is world class, still has room to grow, and he's only 21 years of age. And I'm pretty sure he'll end up winning the Ballon d'Or, being that I am now at Bayern Munich and he's scoring a goal a game. When you find those players, when you are bringing in wonder kids, they're not only absolute game changers for you in that current save, but they bring you back to like, wow, this is a pretty special save, pretty special player. Going to remember this for a while. And that's what I do love about wonder kids. They allow us to kind of have little memories throughout our saves.
See, I like to fabricate their memories through, I've got an example on my screen, and this is a player called Okello. And he was actually the biggest transfer fee, even though I love getting my free signings. But he was someone I just wanted so desperately. I was willing to pay like $1 million for him, which at my level is absolutely nuts. And he developed into a centre-back. He was considered like a big, tall central midfielder. We see him as a centre-back. We convert him to a centre-back. And the thing that makes me love him was he didn't have big important matches. He didn't have an affinity towards important matches. He wasn't a consistent performer. And then he developed into loving big matches, being consistent performer, becoming club captain. Now, he's not a wonder kid by an extent, and he's not a top level player by any way. But I get that same kind of legendary status, legendary feeling of converting this guy, a kind of average midfielder in the MLS who's not doing great, not performing very well, bringing him into my team, him becoming the best centre-back in the league, a guy who doesn't have much leadership, that's now increased his leadership, that's now club captain, and is an absolute animal from corners, set pieces. We'd never concede goals from set pieces just because of him. And it makes me like love this real player and this real guy. Like, I'll be a fan of his forever. But he's by no means a wonder kid. So for me, I try and get those stories and then feelings of them players that I love, not through the guys having to be 17, 18, 19. I can pluck this guy of 20, 22, 23 out of nowhere and convert him into the player that I wanted. And I particularly like doing that with much older players, like 29-year-olds who maybe have not failed in their career, but they're on a downward trajectory, and then bringing them back to life. That same feeling that you get from
the Freddie Adu's of the world.
that same feeling that you get from getting them wonder kids, I get from I much prefer saving someone's career, and also getting players that have the stats already that I want, instead of bending over to adjust for a guy who isn't really as versatile as I like. So yeah.
Because up until this year, Wonder Kid wise, hadn't really had a player that's wow, I remember this guy. Majority of them have been IRL type players. Like when I was doing a Wrexham save, it was Reagan Booty. I had Reagan Booty with me almost all the way up to the Prem when I got him in the Vanarama National, and then another player was Sebastian Szymanski, who I am a huge fan of now in reality because of Football Manager. Like you said, you're a fan of that player now in reality. I'm a fan of Sebastian Szymanski big time because of what he kind of did for me in Football Manager. And thankfully he has backed it up at Feyenoord and now at Fenerbahce as well. So it's definitely cool when you can have those experiences with players. And what Wonder Kid wise, I think it's a little bit different because obviously these guys don't exist. They're generated, so it's a little bit different. But I think with Wonder Kids, the coolest part with them is not only finding those world beaters, but finding the ones from obscure nations, getting one from Madagascar, or I was doing a rebuild of Liverpool and I had one from Bolivia. The dude was absolutely ridiculous. So those are some fun ones as well.
Yeah, that's true. Now you mentioned it, I have had a couple of great young players that come through from random countries that I find awesome. But and we're talking about regions versus Wonder Kids. Does it not, when you watch FM streamers and you see them say, for example, they do a championship save or whatever, and they end up with pretty much all the same Wonder Kids, and they're people are aware of the existence of these players, right? I know every Wonder Kid on the game pretty much, I believe, and I've never signed one of them. However, if I look at, I intentionally avoid them because I feel like I already know that they're a player that's X current ability with double the potential ability. You're looking at a player that's going to be doubled in quality over a couple of seasons. When you look at people's saves and you see them just with all the same team, do you not think, wow, this is so unfun compared to other avenues you could have gone down in trying other things?
I don't know. I don't know. Not necessarily, I guess.
So for me, again, if that's what you love playing, and the amount of times I get people in my stream that will send me, hey, do you want a list of the best Wonder Kids on the game? Or, hey, this guy's amazing. That actively makes me not want to sign him. Whereas I'll have a player like Ante Budimir, the 29-year-old, I forget where, Croatian, I believe. And we on stream had a little friendly bet that I believe that he would score definitely 15 goals in Serie A. And because he's not a young Wonder Kid and because he's not fast, of course everyone was like, no way he scores loads of goals. He scored 24 goals in the year, and the guy's just an older Croatian, tall, target forward kind of player. And I love the guy. And I feel so sad that a player like him would be neglected. He's just such a fun, interesting, different kind of striker, and he's completely disregarded because he's slow and he's old. And for me, that's literally one of my favorite players ever. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like when you just have this recipe of just has to be young, has to be fast, and these are the guys, and there's no jeopardy to it. There was a genuine chance that Budimir was going to flop and I was going to look ridiculous, but I had faith. I know my FM, and I knew my guy was going to get the goals. So yeah, that's how I kind of think differently about a game and what I find. And it's just my preference of what I find fun compared to what someone else does. So yeah.
Yeah, and with those older players still being able to bag goals, one of the teams I testing with is Fenerbahce for tactics because they have Ed Dzeko. He's 38 years old, and yeah, his knees are kind of turning to dust, but he can still absolutely bang him in. And when I have a good tactic that allows him to do so, he can score 40, 50, 60, 70 goals even though he can't really run anymore, he still has what it takes to bang him home. So even though he's older and whatnot, yeah, it's not the sexy signing or the sexy type of players like Erling Haaland, Mbappe, Jude Bellingham, but they still can get the job done. And what, like you said, with the hey, you want a list of the Wonder Kids and all that, I'm guilty of putting those together for people in my Discord and whatnot. But the main list that I have fun doing are those kind of under the radar ones, like the people that you can sign for under 15 million, 10 million pounds. And those ones go on to just absolutely dominate for you in saves, plus accrue in value, like we were talking earlier. With those free signings, you can find some budget beasts in a way. Instead of going out and splashing 90 million on Victor Osimhen, you might be able to find a striker that can do what he does for 10 million. So there's definitely that look and aspect as well.
Building a target forward tactic for a 38-year-old Dzeko, that's a man after my own heart. That's playing Football Manager. That's how you play Football Manager for me. That's a beautiful thing. Giving him his last year of facilitating what he's best at. It makes me happy to hear that. That's what I want to see.
Yep. I absolutely love testing with him. He's an absolute beast. So, one of the last things that I wanted to talk about with Fletch here today is something that I thought was absolutely fantastic production-wise, and it was a network save that he was a part of called the North American Creators League. It was absolutely fantastic, and that is where he has been getting some of the players from that he's been showing off today from his Canadian team, Pacific FC. Fletch, would you like to kind of describe and talk about what it was that you were a part of?
So yeah, there's a bunch of North American streamers that stream Football Manager, and they asked me, because I'm based in North America, if I would like to be part of their network save. And I said yes, absolutely, not knowing what it was going into it. And it happened to be the Canadian Premier League, which I was actually hesitant to do at first. I was thinking, oh no, this doesn't look that fun, or my team's terrible, etc. But it turned out to be the most fun save I've ever done, getting to play with dedicated 7 other streamers every week. And before each time we played, they do a pre-game show where the panel, the 3 guys, Dill 40k, Bizarro Brigade, and Honey Badger, they do a pre-game show, kind of like in the PvP mode, and describe all what's going to happen in the save and talk about everyone's tactics and best players. And we dedicated 30 weeks of gameplay to this across this Football Manager 23, and it's been so fun getting to play against real players every week, and they did an amazing job of putting that show together. And I've heard that they're going to be doing a new network save with even more North American streamers, and I heard that you potentially might be a part of that. So how true is this?
That is true.
That is true.
That is true.
Very cool.
That is true. I'm not sure what exactly it's all going to entail, but definitely looking forward to it, because when I saw the production that goes into it and everything, I mean, to do it for North American creators as well, because a lot of stuff is for European creators, and it's not a knock against any of that, but to be able to grow the game more over here, that's kind of what I wanted to do with my channel, is be able to grow Football Manager and sport that we all love, football, here in North America. And by having a load of us do it together, I think that'll be pretty cool and allow us to kind of get it out there, so that there's more and more people playing Football Manager instead of now what is EAFC, because Football Manager is definitely a much better game than that is.
So do you know of any parts of the game, or know of like what league we're going to be playing in, and been told you're not allowed to say what it is, or do you actually not know?
I know how many teams or creators there's going to be. I don't know all the creators. I do know that it's going to be based in England, so I'll leave it at that, because Fletch and I aren't really sure how much we're allowed to share on it. But yeah, that is definitely going to be happening come FM25.
So what are your thoughts about, obviously you've commentated and took part in drafts and stuff before, but in terms of playing a network save with a bunch of people, new people, and you'll be competing against myself and others. How's your thoughts and feelings towards like going into a network save like that? How are you preparing for that, and what's your plans for this?
I think it's gonna be a cool change of pace because, like you said, I've been in the draft scene. I mean, you were number 1 in the world. I was number 3 in the world at a point in time, and also done the commentary side of things. I absolutely love doing the streaming side of everything and being able to not only interact with the viewers and whatnot, but with who I am playing against. So it's definitely going to be fun. And also, I mean, it's going to push all of us to definitely make sure that we're playing at our best and making sure that, tactically speaking, we are doing the best that we can. I do know we're not going to be able to make signings in the first half of the season. It's all going to come in January. So whatever club we end up getting, that's a squad that we get. So if we end up getting one of those relegation type sides, it's going to make it even more challenging to do well. And I mean, playing against some of the top drafters, some of the top competitors within Football Manager community, it's going to be challenging for a lot of people, and it's going to be pretty good entertainment as well. So I'm looking forward to getting back into it. I mean, especially playing against people like yourself. That would be former number 1 versus former number 3. So it's really going to be like, all right, that is going to be a heavyweight type matchup right there when indeed it does happen. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I have a feeling.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed was it forced everyone to kind of step up their game. It's no fun getting beat every week. Like, no matter if you're there for a good time, it's only going to be a good time when you get them 7 losses on the bounce. But it made everyone just step up their Football Manager game and really take an interest in getting better and not approaching it differently, not playing against the AI, not playing like the AI. And having to compete in this like longer form series where it goes on per week, it's just been so fun. You get really hyped to play each week, getting your 6 different opponents that you're going to plan for and prepare for, and it makes it just such a fun experience. Easily the most fun save I've ever done. And yeah, the guys that organize it do an amazing job. They put in a bunch of effort, and I've thoroughly enjoyed playing with those guys.
Yeah, and I mean, from the looks of everything, it looked to be a boatload of fun. And like I've said multiple times already, the production of it, it's not just all right, let's load up our saves and get to playing. There is a pregame show. They break down how people have been doing, some of the best players, what stats are like, potential tactics. It is a really, really cool thing that I think is something fresh and exciting with Football Manager, especially from the streaming side of things. All right, so there we have it, everyone. That is kind of the interview, debate, whatever you kind of want to call it here with FletchTheSauce today. I really appreciate you coming on, my man. It was a lot of fun. First time kind of done anything like this. First collab as well for the both of us, from what I know. So looking forward to potentially doing more in the future, but I'm going to kind of give the platform here to Fletch here in a moment. Go ahead, shout out whatever you'd like to shout out. And everyone, please make sure check out Fletch. I'll be linking all of his stuff down below in the description of the video.
Thank you so much. You haven't got to shout me out. I'm so happy that you would even reach out to ask me to do this. So I really appreciate it. I'm happy to do it. Yeah. My links will be in the description, but yeah, thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate you asking me to do this and to get the chance to talk to you, and I really look forward to playing with you in the network safe. It's going to be a bunch of fun, and I hope to see you do really well.
All right, thank you, my man, and you as well. I have a feeling that is going to be a boatload of fun.
Yes, sir.
Well, there we have it, everybody. I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future. Let me know down below some creators that you would like to see me collab with and either do some type of guides and whatnot, or more videos like this where we sit down and discuss the world of football. If you guys happen to enjoy, please feel free, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing is 100% free, so when I hit that sub button, I'll be linking all of Fletch's stuff down below in the description, so definitely make sure to check him out. You'll be highly entertained during his streams as well. But until next time, everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye.